So what is a God consciousness? So often we hear spiritual teachers and enlightened teachers talking about the God consciousness. But from a very simple perspective, how can we learn to have such a mind and practice it? Or how can we use such an attitude to improve our lives? Let's start by understanding that the idea of illusion, of individuality is an illusion due to the fact that every person is born from others, not even one but two parents. And you usually have a number of siblings, friends, and you'll be attracted to someone else as you grow older. And with that person, you are bound to repeat the same cycle by giving birth, meaning that a human being can never live alone. Our bodies are made up of our 144,000, God's 144,000 perfect attributes or qualities, such as love, kindness, honesty, strength, wisdom, etc. And these, when they vibrate at a low frequency, they become crystallized in the form of our physical bodies or organs. But in reality, these are reflections of consciousness or intelligence. Likewise, everybody else is a crystal reflection of God or crystallized reflection of God. Let's start by saying that God is consciousness, which expands in the form of a golden ratio, which is a numbering system or an energy impulse. As this energy increases in the form of a spiral, it creates fractions of itself so that it has infinite varieties of the same thing. So likewise, everybody else is a reflection of yourself in the same manner that you live simultaneously with them on the same planet. But if you were to be on your own galaxy or planet alone, you wouldn't be able to live because the mind cannot perceive reality or existence alone, meaning that you always have to relate to others. In order for you to be happy, you need to be loved or as well as to love. And for that to happen, there must be more than one entity. Meaning that the story given in the Bible about Adam living alone in paradise was a form of a test or challenge for our consciousness because such a thing couldn't exist. Adam would not be a man if there was no possibility for a woman. In the same manner that there can be no darkness without the possibility of light or in without an out. Everything is in another form or dimension. Thus, they complement each other to create what we call systems. And systems refer to a living entity which is made up of more than one component. And the planet is made up of more than one individual, meaning that we too are part of a system, an intelligent as well as a biological system, because we too are intelligent and biological beings. But we are not individuals. Individuality is an illusion created by fears, ignorance, as well as evil or cruelty, because it's promoted by those who think they have more than enough, or by people who promote their greed as well as cruelty, by taking more than necessary for themselves, and thus creating conditions of despair as well as inequality for others. But in order for them to protect themselves using this deceit, they must teach us to also neglect the other, while failing to realize that before Westerners promoted capitalism, they practiced slavery, which was a collective or a race activity designed to enrich them all as a race. As a matter of fact, we all know that white people are all wealthy or rich. Some that many of them now are living their Cinderella dreams. They live in castles and palaces, while many of us black people live in conditions worse than we were before we met them. And yet here we are today practicing their philosophies of individuality, which favor capitalism. And in this case, capitalism demands that we buy everything, even though we started from a point of victimization and marginalization. So which means that the so-called spirit of Ubuntu cannot be practiced within a capitalist system. As much as Nelson Mandela would have loved to preach Ubuntu, it would not have succeeded being taught by a capitalist or a politician. And so the main reason why individuality is wrong is because of the fact that we have the ability to become everything, because we are everything and we exist with consciousness, with has the ability to transform itself into everything, because the mind has no shape, thus meaning that it can take any shape, and it has no volume, meaning that it has no limited capacity in terms of learning or storing information. But given that we were to see the other person as an extension of ourselves, and that we were born from others, we live with others, and we cannot be able to live with others. So much that if you were to be placed in a single planet alone, you would simply lose your consciousness due to the inability to relate. And so this means that for us to be healthy and happy, we need to relate to others. And for this to be at its peak or optimum state, everyone has to be on the same level, because for as long as we have poor people, marginalized people, or sick people, this is bound to be a reality for everyone else. So that in ancient societies, they would ensure that no one was sick, no one was unhappy, or without a partner, or etc. Because any abnormalities, if it can happen on one person, then it would have the ability to spread and become the norm within the society. And so they would use whatever resources which were available to be easily available to everyone else, and everyone was initiated to see themselves as an extension of the other. And this was called divine unity, due to the fact that all of us are a system, or biological living beings which collectively create a system. Now let us assume that this was the attitude in our world today, that the other person would not lack anything that we currently have, and that everyone's talent will be your talent, their possession your possession, their lives your lives, and their destiny your destiny. This means that everyone will be able to benefit from everyone's talents, works, attributes, etc. And if one was to leave this world, in other words die, we would not worry about it, because we would understand that they are left behind in us, and that because they were born from us, we have the same ability to give birth to them. And so this would end our fears of death and uncertainties, because we would see the other one as a confirmation of our uncertainties, whereas seeing ourselves as the certainties, meaning that the only thing we can be assured of, because instead of being educated to be employees, we'll be enlightened to understand or master self, because every person has an obligation to deal with themselves. Given that everyone is an expert in dealing with themselves, there will be no one having to worry about the next person. There will be no need for laws in prisons, or prisons as well as the military, because everyone will be a self-governed organism which is responsible as well as contributing to society at large. And so with the fear of death, we thus live in a world saturated by love, compassion, understanding, honesty, truth, and learning. And because we'll be sharing everything that we have, also with love, DNA has the ability to expand, which means that it has the ability to retrieve all the information which was stored within it, the talents, the knowledge, and all the discoveries which were known by ancestors long before we were born. Which means that in a world saturated by love rather than fears of uncertainty, poverty, sicknesses, etc. So that in order for doctors to exist, there must be an abnormal society of inequalities. Because for people to become sick, there must be faulty products in the form of cars designed to break down so that we can buy them again, or in the form of genetically modified foods or unnatural foods, because health is wealth, health is nature, and nature, given that we have equal access into it, we will no longer have a need for hospitals. And also we need lawyers, simply because we live in a world of inequalities justified by cruelty and greed, meaning that we don't need laws or the judicial system, but we need a well-organized society in terms of morals. And so if everyone else was the extension of the next person, we will no longer have fears, like I said, and instead we will be living in a world saturated by love, which would allow us to operate at the peak of our intelligence, because we know that a child's intelligence grows with compassion, love, as well as acceptance. But given that the child is denied any of these things, they have a negative effect on their psychological development. So given that this was a notion or the standard for the human race, every child being born would have the ability to contribute to society, and all our talents will be combined together to create a world of abundance, upon which everyone will have the same everything else as everyone else. And so we'll no longer spend our time trying to make ends meet, seeking for petty